How many years have you lived in Nairobi?
Uh, I've lived in Nairobi since when? 2014, August.
Permanent resident. So all your business has started being about Nairobi.
Nairobi kuna permanent residence kweli?
Yes, some people like somebody like me shifted permanent residence since I joined college. But remember before, initially, the temporary one is that one like you come visit a relative, then you go back home. You come for another holiday. So you are taking sneak peeks into the city.
So by permanent residence,
it means you start renting a space
where you pay your own rent,
where you pay rent or you become accountable to your agent,
and you do your own bills.
For everything they come and when they want to ask you about something in the space you are renting, you're the one responsible.
True.
Okay, apparently a lot of things have happened since the moment we started being permanent residents by virtue of coming to study and then building another life, another different aspect of life. A lot of changes have happened in this in the creation of these spaces that we keep on demanding to house as real estate. And looking at my experience when I first went to speak to a landlord to rent a space, and the kind of apartments I live in right now, when I try the experience I try to get.
So when you started renting, which area did you begin with?
When I started living, I was living next to Kenyatta University. It wasn't hard to get an apartment.
KM, is it the famous KM?
The famous KM. So it wasn't hard to get an apartment there. We'll talk. There were landlord owners with good spaces. But recently, I've seen even for bachelors who appear calm and set on things that they want to do in life. There has been a challenge. Maswali zimeanza kuwa mingi.
Ndio upate nyumba.
Ndio upate nyumba. So as a young man, as a bachelor.
So you see, this is from for you to now start renting. The status of renting. I think it begins from you finishing college first.
From me finishing college first.
Now as a bachelor.
Yes.
Okay.
So what has been your most an experience that made you go in, like you were surprised? House hunting, is this how house hunting looks like? What was your most moving experience as a bachelor looking for a space?
I think this kind of, I would call them kind of uncouth laws that some landlords and landladies put out in Nairobi, some estate, because I think it depends on the place where you live in. The more posh a place is, I think the more some of these uncouth laws are being initiated, because you go to look for a house as a bachelor. Maybe you've finished college, you just want to settle. Maybe you've got another job through connection, or you've just been employed, newly employed. You're earning a small 80,000 or 90,000. Of course, that's a lot for someone who has finished college. But then you go, say you walk in a place like Ruiru, for instance. You see a beautiful house just from an external appearance. You walk in, the first person you get is a caretaker, right? Or a watchman. The watchman, you ask the watchman, is there a vacancy? They tell you there is. Or most of them put some placard on the gate. So you walk in, they tell you, okay, there's a vacancy, talk to the caretaker. Then you get some stubborn man. They start telling you that for you to live here, we need you to have number one, Mara KRP. Number two, we need your employment contract. And number three, we need your copy of ID, and so on and so forth. And then you sit back and wonder, okay, I just need to rent a house. I am a Kenyan. I'm not a foreigner. At least the show of ID to show that you are a Kenyan, at least, because of course we have Burundians, we have Rwandans, we have other foreigners living in the country. But then at least the minimum requirement should just be an ID, as simple as an ID, right? But then if it gets to the point where somebody is asking you for an employment, marital status, are you married, and so on and so forth. But then the only obligation you should be having is to pay the rent on time. I think that should be the only requirement. So I can go outside there and fake an employment contract and give this guy, because there is nowhere they will ever go to my workplace or confirm that this guy works there. The only people who do that is if you want to be hired in another company.
Imagine you are an NIS agent.
So
those people, they want to eavesdrop on how you conduct your activity. That is why asking people for the employment contract, I think it's outrageous.
It's outrageous. It's not
they want to know the company you work for, and being that they may have details about you, they could start spying on you.
Yeah, true.
Or using you to get services.
Because there are also some fishy landlords. You know, they might want to prey on you on what you have. They might want to take advantage.
Yes.
Maybe they feel that you have. But it happens sometimes that they tend to gauge your capability,
financial firepower.
So that these houses, I believe, they do have. Have you ever experienced where a house, for instance, the landlord knows that these houses are 50,000 a month.
Yes.
But then the moment they get your financial strength, they will tell you this house is 20,000.
Exactly.
So you will find yourself, you're the only person paying 20.
Yes.
The rest are paying 15.
Yes.
Because they know by the time you get to realize that, it shall be too late.
You've already paid
for and you've signed. 1 year. You shall have signed. You know, if you go to court, there's no case there because you signed and agreed. And there's no sheet, there's no price dispute in the gate or in a billboard saying that houses in so and so apartment are 15,000 pounds. It was just more like a discussion. It's like you're negotiating. So
make sure the next time you're looking, make sure you bargain your rent. I do bargain to test the consistency. Because that is the only moment you know.
Only for just randomly speaking to any neighbor.
Okay, just you do your job.
Yeah, you just pop up and ask a neighbor how much.
Yes. Like try to get in how much do you pay for it. But some neighbors understand the drill. They have become part of the cartel. They get discounts for
exactly. So maybe you'll find they pay maybe 15, but then they will tell you 18 or 19. Then when you get in, they go and tell the caretaker, I brought you someone.
So somebody actually gets something.
They tell you, I brought you someone. Give me that 3K. So maybe this person can be getting this 3K from you permanently as you live there for like 30 days every month. And then
the moment I realized that they've been the one paying extra, I'm cutting off that contract.
You've never paid extra?
Yeah.
What happened?
There's a place I lived for 1 year, and I realized I was the one paying extra. It was a bedsitter. And the moment
you're paying extra by how much?
By 1,500. And the moment I realized I was the one paying extra and pretending to live my life secretly, I severed the ties. I cut off the ties with those guys.
How did you find out that you were paying extra?
Okay, as young people, young people don't keep a lot of things. Like in a place where you stay, you talk to a neighbor. Like for this, I was speaking to some guy. He told me, I just pay this. Last time I delayed to pay rent. There was an issue with my account. And then I only needed this, and then I had to use for this to top it. Oh my God, how much do you pay for it? Like I paid this.
And then you realized
I didn't raise it with him.
So you didn't tell him that you paid
I didn't tell him that I realized
you were just shocked from it.
I was just shocked from it. Then when I did the job, told them, I'll quit when this moment comes.
That's a whole year.
No.
After you've paid
for a whole year. For a whole year. Now you can imagine. But I see people who come to look for houses in Nairobi. Maybe it's so emergency, like it's an emergency. So most of these people are never patient. They're like, I want a house instantly. For example, you walk to an apartment, you find a dark place and a cold and maybe a moldy room. But somebody lives in that apartment. Maybe it looks good from outside. But when you do your inspection, the apartment is 3/4 filled. So you wonder, how did these people land here? Then you remember Nairobians, they have no free time to find themselves. Maybe the process of looking for an apartment, it was so hurried that they never had enough time to try and get a better space. Then you hear others have claimed they have been conned. So that's why you find finally, if somebody stays in one place, it's hard to move to another different location because of the experience of wondering how will the new experience look like.
And even the logistics. People don't move because of logistics. You know how
about logistics.
Kuhama is really hard, by the way.
But that has never been for the logistics part. It's never been hard for me. My main challenge has been the experience with the neighborhood. You go to Ruaka, one of the places I've had some funny stories from. You go to Ruaka, you find a nice apartment hidden between trees, but the pathway that leads to that apartment is a den for thieves. Somebody will be waiting.
You can be kidnapped.
The moment you come home late by a little bit, by maybe 2 hours, that day you are food for the thieves. And other places. You find yourself, you go to other places during normal weather, they are dry. Then when it starts raining,
it's hectic.
it floods. All of a sudden it floods. You wonder where does the water flow.
And you didn't when you came there, the rains were never there.
Yeah, the rains were never. It was a good weather.
Physically like a good place.
Yeah, it looked physically like a good place.
And also this element of have you ever like maybe you want to live in Nairobi, you've landed, you want a house.
Yes.
There's this consideration where you are told, you know, people who live in Thika Road are this type of people. And people who live in maybe Eastlands are this type of people, and Westlands are this type of people. You know, there's also that kind of segmentation of the types of people.
Stereotype.
Yeah. So they say maybe Thika Road is for people of Shere. And now Thika Road also has segments. There is Roysambu, they say that is for the wash boys. How do we call the guys who con guys? If you go to Kasarani, I had somebody there in the TikTok saying Kasarani is for people who are suicidal. They like jumping on floors and, you know, kill themselves. So maybe there's a high rate of depression in that area. So when you sit down, so what determines that you want to stay in Thika Road, or you want to stay in Ruaka, or you want to stay in South B? In South C, of course, they say the Somalis there are making houses there so expensive. You know, you go to a place like Parklands, you know, it's so popular with the Indians. Of course, when the Indians stay there, the expense and even walking to a Mamamboga next there, you will get one nyanya is 30 bob. And when you come to Thika Road, 30 bob gets me like 6 of them.
Exactly.
You understand? So this is also something that many people, you know, it's a big concern. Yeah, like where to live and what are the characteristics.
One thing I've noticed about Nairobi, less research.
But it's
consumerism research. Maybe they don't. You can't blame
for you to really research and find that okay, this place is like this. You have to be physically there, which is difficult.
Some people never.
Yeah, you cannot walk.
I can never go into these neighborhoods and try to have an experience or try to do an eye check.
So imagine right now you want to do a road trip within Nairobi to find which place is suitable to live in. It's difficult.
So we rely on those referrals. When I see people talk about neighborhoods on TikTok, we take those reflections seriously. We would really like to hear more of them. Because one time I went to Imara, looked at the apartment, so nice. Looks like a good place to stay. But when it started raining,
it's something else.
It's something else. Yeah. Okay, on that aspect of South Sea being quoting South Sea as one of the areas that is becoming out of reach for people because of rent. Yeah. Do you think the spaces being developed are becoming compatible or incompatible with the tenants' needs, especially on that aspect of South B and South C? For example, one thing I noticed, the crop of whole apartment, maybe 16 floors, becoming maybe 3/4 becoming studios. Do you feel they're compatible to tenants' needs?
I don't really think they're compatible, because the logic behind it is, you see, like in South C, for instance. So I would combine South C, South B, and maybe some parts of Langata, specifically the neighborhoods of the Somalis in that area. So you find that, so personally I've lived in South B, you find that a room that is an equivalent of a bed sitter in Thika Road is like 3 times the rent there. And there's nothing like an amenity or a facility that can make you pay that rent there. It's simply because of, you know, the halves, the Somalis who live there. You know, you get into that room and you ask, how is this 20K? How is this bed sitter 20K? Well, it has the toilet there, you know, the parking is there for you. But then the logic of me renting a bed sitter and parking my car in a basement, it doesn't add up. And also the element of family, because you find that if a bed sitter now is 20K and I have a family, for instance, for me to live in a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom in South C or South B, I have to part away with 40,000 or 45,000. And then still, this kind of a room or space is still not enough. This same amount, if I go somewhere in Thika Road or in Ruiru somewhere, this 40K will get me an own compound where I open my own gate. You understand? So I think the compatibility of this rentals or residential, it's not matching the logic of the pricing. I think it's because of who owns this place and which kind of community lives in this area. Because take those Somalis, you know, they don't really furnish houses, you know, like
they don't.
Yeah. So just as a big room like this, they can live like 5 of them. Just a mattress and some 75-inch TV.
Just rolling on the floor.
Yeah, on the floor. And it is okay for them. They walk out, they go to their basement parking, they get into their Prados, and go out and come back. But now, for somebody like somebody regular, you know, if you part away with some amount of rent, you want to stay somewhere at least. Space is key.
Best to bring a couch.
Yeah, space is key. You want to bring your 7-seater, you know, the low lifestyle. You have to put a bed sitter there. Your coffee table there, which is very very decorated, and your bedroom must have a bed that, you know, wall to wall.
Candle.
Yeah. You want to keep your house. But then you find that it is the opposite. You cannot do that in a rich neighborhood where, you know, this kind of people live. So there is no that sense of compatibility. And the rent speaks out loud, because Utambiwa, the apartment you see there is so posh. You'll even be told the rooftop is a swimming pool. It has a lift. But the moment they open for you the door to have a look, then you are like, no.
Exactly. I experienced what you are trying to say. The apartment looks so good. Yeah. But when you go inside, this how the space is partitioned and even the finishing and the money they quote, you're like, I better get an old apartment because I better get an old apartment that goes for a little bit because they have invested in the lift, they have invested in the outlook of the apartment. But when it comes to the inner space, the finishing, so simple, so normal, so below average. You wonder, what am I paying that rent for?
Does it make sense?
So okay, in the future, when or Nairobi has basically become a place for people who will not have children, because I constantly say, okay, now this brings to our attention, like they need to try and influence pro real estate development, property development in Nairobi, because you find somebody like in that same area, South B and South C, have been to around some 2 apartments or some 2 neighborhoods that you notice they go up to 16 floors. They are what they define as bed sitters or studios are basically below par. You go into other properties like what Savo offers as a studio, then you feel this is what has to somebody can stay here by themselves. But then you walk into these other properties developed by Somalis, you find let me say some Somalis for the disclaimer. You find a space that doesn't even fit to be called a bed sitter, and they claim that is a studio that you really need to pay. You find actually you're paying the same rate at Savo, the same rate at in this other is the same rent, but the compatibility with the lifestyle, even the simple lifestyle for one person, like you have to hop from the bed. If you want to go to your washroom, you jump from your bed behind your couch.
For you to go to the washroom.
For you to go to the washroom.
So if for instance now such a room, if you are now cooking, there's a really burning food there. You see now the kind of air of the food aroma there.
So real estate properties should really take note. Let them design a space that at least somebody can feel. Maybe they could look at the square feet and how it meets how square feet can benefit this. Okay, on the same aspect of real estate, have you noticed some neighborhoods are becoming almost exclusive communities? For example, to get into that community, you need a referral.
Or you must be one of them.
Okay, despite trying to encourage cohesion, I've noticed in some places you can't really get a space without a referral. Which neighborhood have you heard of? Like people can really not get you can't just walk in and find a place and rent a place without really a referral coming your way.
Of course, number one, it trickles down to communities. There's a sect of people. For instance, a place like Parklands. If you ask anybody, even a primary kid, they know Parklands is for Indians by default. And you know places like South Sea, you know it with Somalis, and it's not being tribal or anything, but it's physically evident. So, for instance, right now, if you were to opt for a change of environment, you want to live somewhere, you know, places like Parklands, for you to go there, you know, you would not put it on top of your priority list. Of course, there are other non-Indians who live there, but I believe still it's through the referrals. And also, I hear some people pay something, something small for you to live there, right? And also, if you go there, I believe there's also some small scrutiny. The scrutiny is also because you must have money for you to go there. If you are a small fish, you cannot live there. Because houses there also the rents are also outrageous because the setup of places like Parklands, Westlands, there is more of at least the least you can live there is a 3-bedroom or a 2. The minimum. It's hard to do a bed sitter there. Because hata wewe utajionea huruma. Unaenda kuishi kwa bed sitter Parklands, it's not really making sense. And also going there, so with the connections, the referrals, and the bribery, and also your financial status should be at least somewhere. And you realize that also replicates on the expenses of your daily living there. Because you walk down there, Mboga, 60 shillings will get you only 2 tomatoes. One tomato is 30 bob. And then you go that amount in Kayole somewhere, that will get you a whole gunia. of tomatoes. Yeah. So I think the exclusiveness of communities living in specific areas has made the Nairobi residential status to be more imbalanced.
Some zones are red zones,
like no-go zone.
For example, there's other place, Langata, on your way to Carnival.
Yeah.
There's a very strong Indian community in that place. Yeah. There's a complete gated community. Very nice apartments. Yeah. But imagine you can't get, if like you had an employer close to that place. Imagine you can't
live there.
Yeah, so I believe Nairobi is having some diversity now. Okay, just like when I was reading some article about real estate in London, and somebody having to quote based on the interview that the money that rents London is not made in London.
How?
That means the daily worker that works in the restaurant, does cleaning, does laundry, drives a taxi in London, the money they make can't afford them a good space. I think Nairobi is headed towards that place. Yeah, true. Where most of the money that pays rent is in Nairobi is from other economies. It's like how do we call them? Transfer earnings. Transfer earnings. I think they transfer earnings, something like that sort. The money that they use to rent these properties, you find, especially when it comes to communities like Somalis, Indians, yeah, you find an Indian has a business in London or in Uganda, and the kids are in Nairobi. Maybe they're working on other companies, but the rent that pays that money is sent from another territory, meaning it doesn't reflect the economic value. Yeah. I think Kenya is getting closer to that. Yeah. For example, you wonder, why do people pay for that space? Then I drew from another experience from a Somali community, a Somali guy video that Somalis ni watu roho safi sana. They do transfer earnings without even complaining. That you can find one elder son has made it through and is funding the lifestyle of other other 10 people more. Yeah, and they're comfortable with it. Yeah. So I think this exclusive community, emergence of exclusive community where there is discrimination, whether it reflects the values of a community, I really think it doesn't give fairness. Yeah. For people who work in Westlands and want to live around Parklands to access their workplace, now you'll have to be forced to go and stay in another place because you can't get a house or you have to bribe. Oh, I think that's where the bribing comes in.
You have to bribe. Of course, there is no restriction that you cannot live here. Of course, there's a financial power that can make you live there. Even if the rent is 100,000, you can afford it. They can see you can afford it. So you bribe and stay there. You can. But that is still exclusive. Not many people can really go that direction. Another sprouting estate that is going to be like those exclusive areas like Parklands is the Northern cities here. They're building some houses there.
But Northern sells to anybody.
Northern? Yeah. But there's, if you go to Muhoko this way, there's a certain, they're building the equivalent of a tattoo city.
Yeah, exactly.
It is also going to be exclusive, and it is going to make the neighboring Kawa Sukari to be, the rent will be up. So there's also that kind of element where if an economic zone erupts or is erected somewhere, then the neighboring rentals, the rents tend to hike.
Oh yeah.
There's also that kind of a thing.
Because people have to live to work in that city.
Exactly. And it doesn't match the logic. Why don't you just keep the rent as it is?
My main challenge with I'm always keen about finance, economics, and value for money in consumerism. So in such a place, like people will just be paying because of the demand, but your satisfaction and consumerism is struck off the list. Just the same as people who bribe to stay in Parklands. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, it is. So maybe I don't know if whoever wants to stay in Nairobi, what you should consider before you stay anywhere. Yeah. But come knowing that your pocket matters.
Your pocket and how you'll be judged. Yeah. Do you have good looks?
Do you have a nice car?
If you have good looks,
I believe I got house hand and you've parked the car there. The caretaker will peep and say, hey, this guy has a Mercedes. So this one can stay here. If you go there on foot, you have ruby on your legs.
They'll judge you. So maybe hire a nice car to get a house.
Just rent a nice car to get a house.
Deceive.
Deception is the key.
Fake it till you
until then, until you get to a place like staying in Runda, for an exclusive, Runda is now the top most exclusive place you can live. Of course, by then you shall have really settled in life. Yeah. So when you go and house hand, try to deceive.
There's a place I took my friend to find an apartment, and he was asked, "Are you married?" And they said, "No, he's not married." And I told, "No, you can't give you an apartment if you're cannot marry.
Why?
Outrightly.
Are the houses even conducive for?
Yeah, the apartments was, and that was just in Kasarani. Yeah. Just Kasarani here. Yeah.
That sounds really outrageous. Because it will even make some neighborhoods that were, less thought of, like being exclusive neighborhoods, to start adopting this kind of Parklands, Westlands, and Langata South City arrangement. Because if they start asking such questions, it will even come to a point where places like Thika Road will not be exclusive for students. Students will be told to go and stay elsewhere. Because you remember there was a time when Kahawa, when Danny was like 90% students, if they go on long holiday, the dissertation, it's not deserted. And these days, you realize it is changing. Like right now, they're on long holiday, right? And you walked in when then it is really full. So that tells you a thing. There's a pattern that is diminishing.
The students' numbers are diminishing.
The rents, it means the rents are being hiked so that the students can afford. So you go somewhere else, because it is really painting a bad picture for landlords. They also want to make money from those who have money. Because what's the point of a student renting a house only for 6 months in a year, and then the rest of the year you're not there? Yeah. So I think that is also something that is a thing in the real estate space in Kenya. So that is the whole point of today, right?
Exactly.